contain new provisions that give the centre power to waive off entry fees, license fees and penalties in the interest of consumers and the industry.
Big relief for airline company Go First. The firm has received fresh interests from 2 new bidders just as it was moving towards liquidation.
Goldman Sachs wants to increase lending through its shadow banking unit, and the firm wants to target rich Indians abroad. Good afternoon. You're watching Market IQ. I'm Tamanna Inamdar, and with me is my colleague Smriti Chaudhary. Let's take a quick look at how markets are faring before we move ahead. It's been a flat day for the markets, at least for the Nifty and the Sensex, with not much movement there. What's been working? A pretty decent day for auto companies. A pretty decent day as well for the pharma pack. Sun Pharma, in fact, has crossed the 3 lakh crore rupee market cap. Bajaj Auto doing well today in trade. Eicher as well. As far as your IT stocks are concerned, a mixed bag there with HCL doing fine, LTIM as well, but not so much for the other big IT companies. What's on the losers list? You have JSW Steel, Power Grid, some of the banking pack, and ITC Britannia continues its weakness in trade. So all in all, it's been a good day for pharma and auto, not so much, for example, for the banks. Private bank and the bank Nifty in the red with about a 0.5% of drop. The Nifty Realty seeing some profit booking this afternoon. But we have to talk about sugar stocks, because sugar stocks were the big story of the day. Over the weekend, the government reversed a ban on using sugarcane juice for ethanol. The ministry has now allowed the use of sugarcane juice and B-heavy molasses to produce the green fuel in the 2023-24 supplier, which, by the way, is from October to November. And that has come as a huge relief to sugar companies. In fact, you've seen the sugar pack up in the green with very decent and robust gains on a day when everything else is pretty tepid. And you can see Sri Renuka up 5.5% odd. We, in fact, spoke to Sri Renuka Sugars, Atul Chaturvedi and Praful Vitlani of AISTA. Here's a slice of that conversation.
Government of India and our Honorable Prime Minister has been spearheading the biofuel campaign worldwide. He is emerging as the leader of the biofuel. So it would send very, very wrong signals if India were to withdraw. And secondly, our calculations as far as sugar is concerned, it's not all that bad. In fact, India still is going to be sitting with a hell of a lot of sugar. So I don't see any reason why more and more sugar should not get diverted to ethanol. In fact, and contrary to what you all are thinking, sugar prices in the country have not really gone up. If you look at the international sugar prices, they are closer to about 65 to 70 rupees a kilo. Whereas in India, a consumer is so heavily insulated that you're still buying sugar at 36, 37 rupees a kilo. So I think Indian consumer has been pampered a lot too much.
Know one thing, that outside the rates are 65, 67 and here it is 36, 37. In this case, government is in painful that if I have to import the sugar, it will cost 75 and there will be a huge cry on sugar price.
Right.
So at the time of election, so they have taken this step. Yes, for the future, AISTA has demanded the C molasses price to be increased. And we definitely expect that by Wednesday or maybe in next Wednesday cabinet, it could be raised by 6 or 7 or 8 rupees per liter. And that will be the second relief from the central government and a clear message to the all investors that sugar ethanol chapter is not closed, you know.
that was the management of Sri Renuka Sugars. Moving on, the Indian Telecommunication Bill 2023 is being tabled in the Parliament today. The bill will include significant changes in terms of allocation of spectrum for satellite broadband services. We now have our colleague Vasudha Venugopal joining us on this. Vasudha, what can you tell us about the bill? What are the changes that are being made?
Right. So as far as we understand, the government wants to bring about this telecom bill, and as far as we understand, it also replaces the Telegraph Act, which is really old, which is over 130 years old. So as we know, that telecom sector is the demands and contemporary needs of the sector have also been growing. So this has been brought in, in compliance with, in order to address these growing needs. That is what we understand. And two points of, contention which were raised. One is basically the powers of TRI, which was largely, part of the first draft, and many stakeholders had pointed to problems with that. I think the government has tried to address those concerns. The second thing is, of course, that when the first draft came out, there was a lot of worry as to why the government was trying to bring everything from data apps to messaging apps to calling apps to even OTTs under the larger definition of telecom entities. I think the government has tried to shy away from that this time in the final draft. So these 2 points of contention is what we understand from sources have been addressed. Of course, this will dramatically and significantly change the way the spectrum is allocated in India, especially when it comes to broadband services. It will also keep user safety at the center of the telecom bill, and more importantly, the penalties and punishments when it comes to hacking telecom networks. That is also something that has been introduced, and also, connectivity, improving connectivity, telecom connectivity in remote areas, something that has been part of the national security apparatus and vision of the country of the Narendra Modi government. That is also part of the new telecom bill, is what we understand. But all of this, of course, depends on the logjam that is happening in the parliament between the opposition party and the government. I think once that gets resolved, I think the discussions will proceed, and we can see this bill come through.
Absolutely. Vasudha, Tamanna here. Just a quick follow-up, and one presumes sooner or later this bill will get passed because the government has the numbers. There is one part of the bill which allows the government to also waive penalties. Should we look at this in the context of the entire AGR episode, which was a huge blow to the telecom industry? It's obviously resulted in the government taking on part ownership in Vodafone, Idea, etc. Does the government now, after this bill, give itself the ability to waive off these charges if and when required?
Of course, this was, Tamanna, one of the points that was raised even with, the officials of the ministry when this bill was being brought in. And that is something that the government has been tight-lipped about. But clearly, in the final draft of the bill, you do see that that has been addressed. So I think that is one thing that the government was quite concerned about, and they would want to address that in the final draft.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Vasudha Venugopal there from NDTV, giving us an idea on that telecom bill. Just to quickly pull up how telecom stocks have responded. You saw Tata Tele doing very well in early morning trade. Vodafone also not too badly, but Tata Tele up 5% in trade. Even now, we will be having a more detailed conversation ahead on NDTV Profit on why this matters. Smriti, you track telecom very closely. What in this bill is being looked at as a positive for the sector?
Right. One thing I want to add on to what Vasudha said in terms of Vodafone Idea, right? Analysts believe that this sort of waiver, it's very perceptional, it's very sentimental, but with a debt of over 2 lakh crores, it doesn't seem like the government is going to waive anything off. It also owns 33% stake. Also, it sets a bad precedent for other companies, Bharti and Jio, who have already been paying interest and will be able to continue paying this interest. So it kind of doesn't play in that. So perceptionally, Vodafone Idea's share price may go up. Now, this is the conversation I've had with analysts, but it will be very short term because there's very little chance that the government would actually go and waive an interest or a penalty like that.
Considering in retrospective effect, but prospectively, if something like this comes again,
for sure,
they have the opportunity. Because remember, they went to court and they said, we want to waive it off, and the Supreme Court said, no, you can't.
Right.
So perhaps for future it lays out at least the maneuverability of the government to save a company if they want to.
And another positive point is that now the central government will be in charge of allocating spectrum and not TRAI. So there's another aspect that they've added, that apart from the auction, they can also through an administrative process, allocate spectrum. Now, this plays very well for companies like Starlink and Amazon Project, where the government may go on and actually just allocate spectrum to them. So,
yeah, well, there's a very interesting history to spectrum allocation in this country, but that's for another day. I want to come to another story that we have on our radar this afternoon on Market IQ. Go First, previously known as Go Air, has found 2 new bidders just before it was set to undergo liquidation. So Africa-based Safric and Sharjah-headquartered aviation from Sky One have expressed their interest in Go First. We have our colleague Vishwanath Nair joining us for more details. Vishwanath, is Spice also on that list, SpiceJet?
You're right, Tamanna. So it's essentially 2 bids and 3 bidders. Sky One and Safrica joining hands to submit 1 bid, and of course you have SpiceJet coming in with the second one. Essentially, Go Air, if you remember back in November, there was an entire bidding process where Jindal Group was one of the potential bidders for the airline, but of course they decided to back out of the entire transaction. That left lenders in the lurch. They were actually looking at a liquidation option for Go Air, or Go First as it is now known. But eventually what has happened in the last week or so is that these bids have come in. Well, these are not at this point in time final bids. What they are initial interest from these bidders to the lenders. The lenders have to decide whether they want to entertain these offers or not. And if they do decide to entertain the offers, which is what history shows us in insolvency cases, it doesn't matter if the deadline has passed. If money is on the table, the lenders will take it. So if that is being discussed, then of course you will see some action on the Go First insolvency proceedings. Insolvency proceedings, of course, started back in June, and we're still not there to the finishing line yet. But interesting bit. Your Safric is a Africa-based investor. They invest in large-scale infrastructure projects as well as technological innovations. You've got Sky One, which calls itself an aviation expert. They've been doing a lot of work related to the aviation sector across many countries. On the other hand, is SpiceJet, which is an Indian lender and Indian airline, but they have also had their share of problems. They've raised or at least decided to raise some money from investors in the last 1 week. We need to see whether that money translates into any kind of a firm bid or not.
I was just going to ask you, Vishy, how is SpiceJet bidding for Go when it has its own set of problems financially?
You're right. So, Tamanna, they've had these long-standing issues. They've got planes which are currently grounded. They've got financial, they've not paid vendors as well as lessors. So all of those financial problems still continue. But they, at this point in time, what sources are telling us, the company has not confirmed anything yet, but what the sources are telling us is that they are interested in participating in the bidding process. Doesn't necessarily have to translate into a bid, but if it does, that will be very, very interesting to see, because one airline in bankruptcy being bought over by a fairly stressed lender in India, that'd be a new story to watch. And as I told you earlier, the word to look for here is guts, because that's something quite interesting that's happening with SpiceJet.
Wow.
Right, thanks Vishy, and we'll see how this one plays out. But it's time for a short break. More news and updates coming on the other side. Stay tuned.
Success for me is unwavering confidence in. When things are all favorable to you, you can't say, oh, I'm successful. Half the health you spend in gaining the wealth, and half the wealth you spend to gain back the health, which doesn't happen.
back. You're watching Market IQ. Now, after a few days of finalizing a 2,800 crore rupee fundraise, e-commerce platform Udaan has laid off 100 employees. My colleague Rishabh joins us with more details. Rishabh, what's the reason they've given?
Thanks, Tamanna. The reason that they've given is that they implemented a restructuring earlier this year, about 2 months back. They merged their essentials department and their discretionary department, and that resulted in certain redundancies. And these are the redundancies that they are getting rid of now. The quantum is, again, it could also be up to 120 employees that are affected with this. The departments that are affected are not have not been revealed by the company yet. But yeah, goes to show that startups, the kind of pressure that startups are under to prove their profitability as they head for an eventual IPO as well.
All right, thanks Rishabh for that. Moving on, CMEC is another company that has been making the headlines. The company recently entered into an MOA with Ships and Boats Oil Services for purchase of vessel Sea Pearl. We spoke to CMEC's Naveen Mohta on the company's key milestone over the next 3 to 5 years. Here's what he had to say.
Yes, we want to grow, and all these vessels are working, so we want to expand into the newer territories. Maybe we will venture into this offshore segments out of India also, so that we can start mark our presence over there, and then maybe that will be the next engine for the growth.
And Jefferies has picked Indian hospitals as its top sector for growth in FY24 to 26. This growth in Indian hospitals will be led by capacity expansion. My colleague Mahima is joining us with more details on the report. Mahima, why is Jefferies so bullish on this space?
Right, Tamanna. So they've given two outlooks. One is capacity expansion for hospitals, and they're saying that margin tailwind for pharma. So for hospitals, their top picks are Fortis, Max, Medanta and Apollo. They're expecting that the capacity expansion shall take place anywhere between 3 to 10%. And they're also expecting that the EBITDA that will register for these particular picks that they've taken will be between 14 to 21% in FY24 to 26. They've also said that new bed addition should also start picking up in the next 12 to 15 months. They're also saying that average revenue per bed will drive the earnings growth in the next FY24 to 26. In the pharma sector, they've mentioned that pharma sector in India may register a low growth in 2024 because of price challenges, and pharma, however, will benefit from margin tailwinds. Their top pick in CDMO is Piramal Pharma, because they're saying that this is on grounds of strong turnaround story that Piramal has portrayed, and they're expecting that gross margin in pharma companies should benefit from low material prices, and EBITDA margins should benefit from lower transportation prices. So yeah, this is all Jefferies has to say on healthcare sector as a whole.
Thank you for that, Mahima. And Ola's Bhavesh Agarwal raised eyebrows this past weekend by launching Krutrim, India's very own AI. My colleague Rishabh Bhatnagar spoke to him about the powers of artificial intelligence and the road ahead.
Krutrim we launched today. Krutrim means artificial in Sanskrit. And our Prime Minister has set up a very empowering and a big vision for India, which is a Viksit Bharat by 2047. And for India to be a true world leader, India needs to lead the technologies of the future. And one of the most important technologies of the future is going to be AI. And today, whatever AI we are consuming is not Indian. And AI is a very powerful tool for economic productivity and growth, but it's also a very powerful tool for cultural expression or assimilation. And we in India need to build our own AI so that we can really imbibe our cultural ethos and our values into the whole paradigm of AI. And our values of Vasudhaiv Kutumbakam, of being one with the universe, of not living in binaries but being much more seeking. These are all very important as the future of AI is being defined. So India needs to build AI not just for itself, but for the whole world. And that's our vision here. And to build AI for every Indian at the cost structure that every Indian can afford, we are designing the full stack, starting with the AI models, which are trained on 22 Indian languages, to the cloud infrastructure at low cost sustainable energy, to the silicon design itself here in India to really build this AI future for India.
How do you see Krutrim aligning with Ola Cabs, Ola Electric, all the other group companies?
See, the Ola group companies, we jokingly call it as a joint family. Each of them have their own individual charters, but each of them also strategically might help each other in strategic areas of collaboration. See, as of now, we don't have any roadmap on how Kritrim is going to be involved in other group company businesses, but fundamentally AI is going to be a foundational layer for all sectors of the economy to use. And all sectors of the economy are going to be redefined with an AI-first thought process. And that's what we're looking to build at Kritrim.
All right, a lot of excitement about Kritrim and what India's first AI will mean. Now, before we wrap on Market IQ, let's just take a quick look at how Europe is opened and what we're seeing over there. Remember, Europe, like other markets around the world, has seen several weeks of gain and had 5 straight weeks of gain. But you are seeing at least the FTSE open down in the red, down about 1%. In open. We're going to take a very short break, but stay tuned to NDTV Profit. A lot more coming up on the other side.
You know, success for me is unwavering confidence in. When things are all favorable to you, you can't say, oh, I'm successful. Half the health you spend in gaining the wealth, and half the wealth you spend to gain back the health, which doesn't happen.